And when Oisín got to Ireland, he looked around, and the country had changed. It seemed less vivid and smaller, and not as great as it was when he was last there. But he knew what to do. He had to find some of the Fianna, and he could talk to them and find out what had been happening. So he steered the horse to a valley, and he took it through the valley, and he knew in the valley was a great stone. And he came up to the stone there, and it was in a field, and there was a farmer passing. And Oisín said to the farmer, "Sir, could you lift that boulder for me?" And the farmer said, "Oh, I'm a farmer, I guide cows and sheep, I don't lift boulders." And Oisín said, "That's okay." And he leaned down, and he scooped up the boulder in one hand, a massive boulder, and he threw it through the air. And the farmer was standing, stunned at this as the boulder flew. And then Oisín said to the farmer, "Look, the hole in the ground. There's a great war horn in there. Could you lift it up and give it to me?" And the farmer looked at him and said, "I'm not lifting that horn. I can feel the magic coming off it. There's no way I'm touching it. And I advise you not to touch it as well." But Oisín bent down and he put his hand on the horn. And as he went to hold it, suddenly the strap that was holding the saddle of the horse snapped, and Oisín fell, and he touched the earth of Ireland. And in that instant, he was exiled forever from Tirnall. And the horse turned, and the horse ran away, and he was never seen again. And Oisín lay on the ground there beside the horn, and as he lay there, his body began to twist and warp and get older and older and older. And he became warped, and the eyesight went from his eyes. And suddenly, he was an old, blind, crippled man. But this was Oisín, who knew all he had to do was to find the Fianna. And he reached out, and he managed to get his hand to the horn, and he turned his lips to it, and he put his mouth to the opening of the horn. And he managed to get a little breath, and he breathed into the horn. And the horn recognised the breath of a Fianna, and it took that little puff of air, that little breath, and it amplified it, and amplified it, and amplified it. And the next thing, boom! It sent out a great blast across Ireland. It shook the trees, and it shook the mountains, and the sky itself was shaking with the sound of the trumpet's blast. And so Oisín lay there, waiting for the Fianna to come and rescue him. And he lay there, and he lay there, and nobody came. Well, the farmer had seen all this amazing stuff happening. This youth that fell from a horse and turned into an old man, and he realised there was something strange going on. And so he went and he got a wise man, and he brought the wise man over to look at this old man lying on the ground. And the wise man bent down and he said, "Who are you?" And Oisín, lying there, twisted and blind, said, I am Oisín. I am the son of Fianna, the captain of the Fianna." And the wise man looked at him and said, "The Fianna? I think I've heard of the Fianna. They existed maybe hundreds and hundreds of years ago. In fact, I'm not even sure they did exist. They might just be something that children tell in their stories. It's a long, long time ago anyway. How could you be the Fianna?" And Oisín said, "If I were but a moment of my strength and youth back, I would show you that the Fianna were real and the Fianna were powerful." And the wise man looked down and said, "Well, I'll tell you my story. My name is Patrick, and I have come to Ireland to bring Christianity to this country. So if you are who you say you are, then you can help me. Because every day my monks and I would try and build a church, and every night a great beast comes and destroys our church. So if you are indeed of the Fianna, I will give you my blessing and give you back your youth if you promise to defend my church." And Oisín, lying there, said, "I have defended Ireland so many times, I would be proud to defend it once more." And with that, Patrick leaned over and he touched Oisín in the forehead and blessed him. And Oisín could feel it. He could feel his heart suddenly beating stronger, and the veins opening up in his arms, and the muscles expanding him, and the youth coming back into him, and the sight coming back into his eyes, and his body filled up and got massive and strong again. And then he was back to be Oisín, the warrior. And he stood up, and he took his sword, and he turned to Patrick and he said, "Take me to your church, and I will defend it." And so Patrick took him. And he walked all day and walked all night, and he came to the church. And Patrick said, "Here it is." And Oisín said, "I will wait here, and I will wait for the beast, I will defend your church." And with that, Patrick left. And so Oisín stood in front of the church with his sword, waiting. And in the middle of the night, they heard a snorking. And he looked up, and he could see two red eyes in the distance get nearer and nearer and nearer. And as he watched, a giant bull came towards the church. And it was 20 feet high. And its horns were so massive they were skimming the stars. And his hoofs were made of iron, and his eyes were blazing red fire. And the creature looked at the church, and it looked at Oisín, and it bent its head down, and it pawed the ground, and then it roared, and it ran straight for Oisín. And Oisín, without even blinking, took out his sword and prepared himself. And so began the very last battle ever fought in Ireland by one of the Fianna, and it was Oisín that fought that last battle. And the battle lasted all night, and the sound of it was massive. The great creature and the great warrior throwing each other this way and that. Where one would land, the ground would be gouged up and a valley would be made, and when the other one was thrown aside, a mountain appeared. And as the sword clashed the horns of the sparks that filled the sky with night, and the roar and the sound of the thunder of it filled the whole of Ireland. And then as the sky was coming up, the dawn was coming up, the bull was getting tired, and it took a moment to take a breath. And Oisín took his chance, he got his sword and plunged it straight into the heart of the bull. And the bull fell. And when it landed, it was like an earthquake went through the ground. And Oisín was so proud of himself. He killed this creature, and he gave out a mighty roar of a warrior. Ah! And the roar echoed around the world. And he stood there so proud of himself. And then he relaxed, and he let it all out of him. And he looked around, he looked at the dead creature, he looked at the sun coming up, and he got himself some heather. And he made a little bed for himself, and he lay down, and he slept. Now, Patrick and the monks obviously heard the battle, and they obviously heard this great roar, and they came running up, and they saw their church was still standing. And they were very happy at this, and they looked and they saw the great beast lying there dead. And then they looked around, and they saw the very landscape had been changed with the ferocity and power of the fighting. And they looked down, and they saw the giant figure of young Oisín lying there, the warrior, and they could feel the power emanating off him. And Patrick looked, and he realised there was no room in Ireland for a man as powerful as this. And even though it hurt his heart, he bent down, and he touched Oisín in the forehead, and he took his blessing from him. And Oisín fell to hand, he was asleep, and then he was awake, and he opened his eyes, and he could feel his body begin to twist again. He could feel the strength going out of him, and the youth going out of him, and he could feel his body beginning to age, and he could feel the sight going from his eyes. And he felt himself beginning to die. And as he lay there dying, he said, "My name is Oisín. I am the son of John McCool, the captain of the Fianna." And he just didn't tell who he was. He began to talk about all the great men and women who had lived when he was alive. He spoke of Jeremy and Fianna and Deirdre and all these great people and all the great deeds they'd done. And the monks were so mesmerised, so they took out their quills, their pens, and they began writing down the stories that Oisín was telling them. And so it was that even as Oisín lay dying, he carried out one of the greatest achievements of any Fianna warrior. For with his dying breath, he made sure that the glory and the power of the Fianna warriors would live on and on and on to the very end of time itself. Thank you so much.